Okay, hi there, Yerds. Welcome to another episode of Yearbook University. We're on to our last section of Yearbook University, and this has to do all with design, which obviously is a very key component along with writing and photography in our book. So today we're going to begin with Intro to Design. Again, I'd like you to take notes in your yearbook notebook, and I'll be checking those for points in class, and then we will be using this information that we learned through the videos this week to explore designing on Yearbook Avenue, which is the software that we produce the yearbook on. So let's begin. So what you should know about design. Good design allows your reader to focus on the content, which is the goal of the yearbook. So when we use good design, our reader doesn't get distracted. It allows them to move from one bit of information to the other and really enjoy reading the publication. In contrast, when we have bad design, it is distracting, it is overwhelming, it's not pleasing to hang out on that page and read the content. You look at it and you're like, make it stop, maybe it's bad. Okay, so here we have an example of good design, well organized. The information clearly leads you into different directions. We know kind of what is in each zone. Here we have a kind of an example of bad design. There are so many things going on here. It's so distracting. It's so overwhelming for your eye. You really don't want to stay put there because it makes you anxious and overwhelmed. We don't want to do that to our viewer. So good design should function as an editing process for the yearbook. If we use good design and good design process, we can make sure that our book really flows well for our viewers, that they enjoy reading it, and the publication overall is a success. Bad design distracts from your beautiful copywriting, your great photos that you guys take. If we don't use good design, it really doesn't help play to those other areas of the yearbook. So there are several strategies and functions that designers use to achieve good design, and they are dominance, eye flow, hierarchy, and contrast, and we'll be talking about each one of those. So first off, contrast. Using contrast is by using opposing elements to create visual interest. Bow, 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 bow. We want things to have contrast so that it is interesting. When we don't use contrast, everything is boring and monotonous. Think about someone who talks with only one tone of voice the entire day and doesn't enunciate or add excitement to their voice. It is very boring and you will fall asleep very soon. In contrast, somebody who is lively and animated and interesting and has different influxes in their voice, that enunciates things and then talks a little bit softer here, that is someone who is fresh and lively, who will keep your attention. Think about teachers. Ms. Weitkamp definitely tries to make sure that I'm more lively, interesting, and that is somewhat forced in order to create more contrast in my presentation for you guys, to hopefully keep you keyed in longer. You want to do the same thing with your design. Keep it fresh, keep it lively. So there are different ways to create contrast. Contrast can be by doing things big or small. That's a contrast in size. So we want to have contrast in size. Think about format. You can contrast the format. We don't want to have all vertical photos because then it gets repetitive and you start to fall asleep. So changing the format, horizontal and vertical, making sure that you have different kinds of photos in there. Think about contrasting in shape, different modular designs, maybe including some circular design elements, cutouts, etc. Switching it up, keeping it lively, yeah. Different weights, so think about thick and thin lines in your design, also different weights of type, so thicker type fonts here, lighter type fonts there, again adding that contrast, that variation. In color too, we can contrast colors. Maybe we have a splat of black, we've got some spot colors that we pull from the photos, process color, etc. All those things help to create contrast for your viewer, to keep them awake, keep them engaged. So here's a great example of a spread creating contrast. We have contrasting colors, orange and green juxtaposing. They're pulling those colors kind of from the photos in the spread. We've got a variation in orientations of photos. We have contrast in size, big font, little bitty font, as well as contrasting the overall size of the modules. Big, gigantic photo, little small photos down here, and variation in shapes, things like that. All this creates interest in contrast. All right, on to dominance. Dominance can be achieved by making something significantly larger so it becomes the focal point. What is going to grab your viewer's attention first? Dominant photo is going to usually be the thing that is your focal point of your spread. With that being said, your dominant photo should either be one photo or a collection of photos that are important enough that they should justify being the star of the spread. If your photo is really boring, it should not be the star of the spread. It needs to be a great, impactful photo to really pull your viewer's eye in. It should scream, I am your dominant thing because I deserve it. If it doesn't deserve it, don't make it your dominant. So here we have a great example of dominance. Here we can see this is the most dominant element followed by the most dominant element of type. Big matches biggest story. So these two correspond together. This is a great dominant photo because again we've got some interesting expression going on. We've got some relation. It's candid. It invites what this story could be about. It's a great starter. We also can see that we have difference in contrast with the size, the orientation, things that we've talked about before. Okay, eye flow. The goal of your spread is to keep your viewer's eye moving from one element to the next in the spread. Your dominant photo should be placed in a way that it keeps the viewer's eye towards the center of the spread and then takes them next maybe towards a headline. So your dominant photo should keep them contained in the spread. You don't want them looking off onto the spread or something like that. You want to keep them engaged in kind of that square. The dominant photo or dominant element should direct the viewer's attention to the center of the page rather than off the page, just like I mentioned. Our goal is to encourage the reader to stay on the page. That way they engage with each one of the elements on the page rather than start and then leave the page, which happens when your viewer's eye is directed off the page. They're psychologically more likely to flip that page to the next page quicker. So again, we want to have them stay on the page the longest time possible, and we do that by controlling their eye flow. So here is a pretty good example. Here we've got the dominant element, the dominant photo. It's directing our eye right to the dominant copy, which has us bring it down to our secondary. This is the next biggest, kind of directs your eye up and around, kind of continue in the swirl of the circle. All right, this is what we want to do. The only thing I would say is these hands, it would work a little bit better if this photo was shifted over to the right a little bit more because they're really pushing your eye off the page. Thankfully, they're directing you right to the dominant headline, which guides you down through the copy. But this is a little bit dangerous just because it creates a real direction for you to turn the page this way. But again, they're taking you up, next down to the next dominant size and the next largest, which are these two photos down here and this box right here. Guides you back around, swirling up, boom, big old circle. Okay. Hierarchy. Hierarchy is creating order through size and placement on the spread. So large headline should match the largest photo. So you should think about who is the papa bear, the mama bear, and the baby bear of your spread. If they all look about the same size, you need to create a bigger sense of hierarchy. Who is alpha and who is beta, okay? Who is king, queen, prince, so on and so forth. There should be a real stair step as far as size and placement. Biggest, most important should be biggest and most important. Then should be your smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller to help your viewer understand what should they go to first, followed by next, followed by da 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 da. This creates a real sense of order for your spread. It helps guide your viewer. It gives them kind of instructions on what they should read first, second, third, that sort of thing. So one way we do this is by doing our primary headline nice and big, followed by a descriptive secondary headline to kind of progress your viewer down, and then that leads them into the copy. All right, so here's an example of hierarchy. We've got our dominant photo leading us into our dominant headline, our primary headline right here, eat, sleep, cheer, repeat. And then our secondary headline, varsity cheer, is dedicated to the responsibility of being the school's leader, and then your byline. And then that pulls you into your lead, and that pulls you into your copy. So kind of processes you down. Also, this is the primary information right here. It's biggest, it's boldest. So here is our primary information followed by our secondary. So you can see the scale is getting smaller and smaller as the content is less and less important. It's still important, but it's not as important as the body story right here. We always want this to be the biggest kind of attention grabber. Okay guys, hopefully I talked really quick and you guys were able to pause me and write some notes about intro to design and those kind of 4 ways that we help control design on our spread. We'll be talking about it more and utilizing design when we explore Yearbook Avenue. Thanks so much guys. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.